eye, where I help to research materials used for the Mar history classes. I'm also responsible for the education materials of the youth culture core, the teens who are doing the free tour guides in different places in Seoul, like Gyeongbok, Tokso, etc. Unfortunately, these days, because of the coronavirus situation, you cannot attend this class. But instead, we will have a unique form of Mari class through the internet. Even though it's a very hard time, I'm very, very happy to meet you. So, let's start with our class in the War Memorial. I will explain to you the things you can meet here. Let's start. Let's start from Koguryo. As you know, Koguryo was a quite strong country in Northeast Asia, and it is particularly true for its military. Koguryo's military was very unique, and it had fought a lot of wars with China. What is important for us today is its wars with Sui China, the one you know as Sunara. As you might know from your book, Sui China attacked Koguryo with huge amount of soldiers, almost 300,000, in order to capture the Koguryo capital. However, did they win? Let's see. Koguryo at this time had a marvelous general who is called Imjin War. Imjin War knew that he cannot win this battle by directly attacking the Chinese, so he devised a trick. This trick was the following. He did not beat the Chinese in open battle, just made them tired. When we reached the Salsu River, it's a river that flows near today's Pyongyang, he made a dam in the river withholding the water. So when the Chinese were crossing the river, he released the dam, and the water swept away the enemy army. Of all those 300,000 Chinese soldiers, only barely 2,000 survived this battle. Thus, you can see this is one of the great victories of Korean war history. From this one battle, we can learn an important lesson about Koguryo's military, and that is, they use military tactics as well as the natural surrounding to their advantage to win over their enemies. Let's go further. Okay, before we start to talk about other wars in Korean history, let's point out how wars, as they are, appeared and why there is a war. First things first, let's go back long, long ago in time into something that we call Neolithic period. You know it as Shinsō-Ishide. If you look at here, you can see different weapons of Paleolithic and Neolithic period. Yeah? These weapons originally were weapons of hunt, not weapons of war. Yeah? So important thing, the first weapons were used for hunting food. How did wars appear? Very simple. As you might know, in the Neolithic times, Shinsō-Ishide, people started living in villages. People started owning things. They had their own houses, they had their own farms, animals. And sometimes other people with bigger power wanted to get these things. This is how the first wars started. And this is how weapons who were originally used for hunt started to be used for fighting. Look at some of these weapons. And now we will move to a different age where hunters become warriors. Let's go. Now we came to an age called Bronze Age. It's named like that because people start making weapons from bronze, Chongdong. And we are at a place called Gojoseon. We will not talk about the legend of how the Gojoseon Kingdom was founded. That is for a different lesson. We will talk about this, the bronze daggers of Gojoseon. As you have seen a while ago, these are very, very different from the Neolithic weapons. They are made of much better material and their form is much more fitted to battle. This is the age where wars have already started. We don't know much about the history and wars of Gojoseon. We only know that they fought a lot with different Chinese kingdoms and they use these kind of typical weapons. Now, let's look at the Gojoseon weapons. But it is not only materials that win battles. Actually, as you already know from the Koguryo's case, the more important thing is about strategy and tactics. Now we will move to Koguryo and see why they were so much feared military power in the area. Just look at a Koguryo warrior. What do you see? We will go into details. Koguryo was famous for its horsemen. What made the Koguryo horsemen famous and powerful? Let's go and see. First of all, Koguryo military combined wonderful technique with very good strategies. Technology-wise, they were very good blacksmiths. If you look at this armor, you can see that their iron-making technology was outstanding. They made armors not only for the warriors, but also for their horses that you can see over there. We call these armed warriors Keimamusa. You can see that their weapons were also very high-level weapons made of iron. But there was another thing that made Koguryo warriors extremely powerful. This is also made of iron, but it's not a weapon. It's something called stirrup, or in Korean, tungja. The stirrup is actually just a small piece of iron that you have on a horse that helps you to balance while you are riding the horse. This allowed Koguryo warriors to make amazing feats on the battlefield. Look at that picture. If you see the picture of the horse archer, you will realize how flexible and quick they were on horseback. Because of using stirrups, they were able to turn back in saddle and shoot the arrows backwards towards the people who were chasing them. This was not only, by the way, tactics of Koguryo, it was the tactics of all North Asian people, like Mongols later, or Khitans, Hwarang들. But one of the first in records who used it was Koguryo people. So let's look at these marvelous Koguryo weapons.
Okay, so how heavy do you think it was? Yeah.
It's made by
Yes. I feel like they had, and could you imagine wearing these ones in uniform? Oh, that's true. They must be
King Imjin established his sovereignty during the early years of his enthronement, formed an alliance with Koguryo to capture roughly 40 fortresses in the southern region of Chile, including Deyasun Castle, to expand his dominion. The new years, as Meche continued to gain power over the land, Sheila sent Kim Jun-ju as an ambassador to the Tang Dynasty in order to strengthen their diplomatic relations. During the time, Tang deployed numerous expeditions to Koguryo, only to fail repeatedly. They decided to unleash a preemptive attack on Meche. Tang accepted Sheila's request for reinforcements and established a military alliance. Shila-Tang allied forces deployed 130,000 soldiers under the command of Sojun Bong. They departed from Neju in the Sandun-Bando Peninsula, crossed the Western Sea, and advanced towards Meche. 50,000 Shila troops under the command of Kimyushin departed from Gyeongju past Nanchangjeong and headed towards Sabi-Song Castle. Meanwhile, amidst the critical situation, there were many conflicts and disputes among the ministers and lords of the Meche government. They were not able to devise countermeasures. The Tang forces had already reached the shores of the Baek River, where they defeated the Meche forces. Shila troops treaded past Tanya towards Hwangsangbo. King Wijia Meche was under pressure. He assigned a life-or-death squad comprised of 5,000 soldiers to General Kimyushin and entrusted the fate of the nation to General Kimyushin. General Kimyushin was resolutely determined as he headed to battle. He ended the lives of family with his own hands to prevent them from suffering under the rule of the enemy. He led the 5,000 soldiers to battle. The Meche forces regained confidence and waged battle against the Shila forces. The Meche forces triumphed over Shila after waging 4 battles. However, Bangu and Kwanchang, courageous archers, were among the Shila forces. They were not afraid of losing their lives, and they ran into fight. Ultimately, they were killed in battle. Shila forces became furious over the death of the courageous archers and deployed a full-scale offensive attack. The 5,000 Meche troops fought against the 50,000 Shila troops with no fear of death. They fought defiantly. However, they lost the will to fight when General Kimyushin died heroically in battle, and Meche was doomed. Nevertheless, the courageous archers of Shila, as well as General Kimyushin and his 5,000 men, who fought patriotically to protect their nation, are esteemed as the heroes of the Battle of Hwangsangbo to this day.
Did you have fun watching the video? It showed the story of the Hwangsangbo fortress, the last stand of Baekje against the huge Tang and Shilla army. As you know, Shilla and Baekje were old enemies, and they kept fighting about who will be the winner in the Korean peninsula. As you also know from the school, Baekje was the one who would ultimately fell under the Tang and Shilla alliance. And Hwangsangbo, this fortress, was the last battle where they sacrificed their life for their own country. Namely, General Kimyushin, who fought against a 10 times bigger army, showed his true love for his country by leading all the men to a last attack against Silla. What do you think? What could be in Kepek's mind in these moments? Let's think about these picture heroes for a while. Now we arrive at Silla. As you might know, Silla was the latest of the three kingdoms to be formed, and to be honest, it was very, very unique. If you look at their armor, do you see the differences between the Silla armor and the Goguryeo armor? We can only imagine how different these two countries were. Also, Silla had very unique system in both how to lead the kingdom and in the army. The most famous part of the Shilla's army was the so-called hwarang. To be honest, we don't know what originally hwarang was, but we know what it became. Hwarang became a group of elite young warriors who were formed to protect the country, but also upkeep certain kind of ideals. What kind of ideals, you ask? There were 5 rules of the hwarang that each of them had to keep. First, the hwarang had to be loyal to their king and country. Second, the hwarang had to have filial piety. This means they had to respect their parents and elders. Third, there had to be trust and love between friends and colleagues inside the hwarang. Fourth, the hwarang should never give up and never escape in battle. If you later read books like Sambuksagi, you can see stories of how hwarang never retreated from battle, even if they were sure that they are going to die. And 5, the last rule was never kill anything without a proper reason. As you can see, these rules have values from both Confucianism and Buddhism. Interesting, right? Now, let's see some of the artifacts of the Silla dynasty. As we mentioned at Hwangsangbo Fortress, Hwarang and Silla alone was not enough to conquer Baekje. They needed the alliance with Tang China. Tang China helped Silla to defeat both Baekje and Goguryeo. However, this help didn't come out of the goodness of their hearts. They had interest in Korean Peninsula. What interest, you ask? They wanted to be the lords of Peninsula by ruling Silla as well. So, after unifying the peninsula, Silla needed to get rid of Tang Chinese influence, and this resulted in battles. We will talk about two important battles of the Silla-Tang conflict now. The first is a battle on land. This happened at Maeso Fortress. At Maeso Fortress, Silla attacked the invading Tang force and defeated them. They took 30,000 horses, that is some manmai, from them. And this huge loss caused Tang to withdraw from Silla's territory. The second battle was on the sea. This was the Battle of Kibolgo. Tang knew that attacking only on land is not enough, so they sent a fleet of ships to Silla. However, the Silla navy, which was 22 times smaller than them, confronted them. What do you think the result was? Of course, Silla won. And with this victory, they removed all Tang's influence from the Korean Peninsula. Now let's see something about navies of Korean history. Today, Korea is the #1 producer of big ships, and also among the first when it comes to trading on the sea. But this tradition is very, very old in this peninsula. Look at this picture. Who do you see? Does the name Jangpogo ring any bell? Yeah, we are talking about General Jangpogo, who became one of the most famous admirals of the unified Silla period. He fortified his base, Chonghaejin, and made it the center of the local trade, which in a way became a very important port of international trade too. Jangpogo was in a way king of the sea, because both in military and both in trading, he made unified Silla very strong. What happened to this naval tradition after unified Silla? Let's check that one too. So as we said, Korea became a sea power during unified Silla times, and this continued even during Goryeo times. However, on the north border of the Korean peninsula, from land, different dangers waited for Korea. The biggest one would be the Mongols. Korea already had a history of fighting with different nomad people, Yumo Minjok, on the north of the peninsula. But no one was bigger threat to Korea than the Mongol Empire. What do you know about the Mongols? What have you heard about them? As you might know, they were a huge empire, and they used the same tactics as Goguryeo before to defeat their enemies. After long fights, Goryeo as well fell to the Mongol Empire. The king escaped from the capital city, Kaekyeong, to a small island called Ganghwa Island. Yes. However, this was not the end of the fight. There were still groups of loyal people called Sambyolcho who continued fighting against the Mongols. From this age, we have a very, very interesting artifact that is not related to any battle, but it's still very, very important for the war against Mongols. What is this, you might ask? Let's see. We are talking about this. This is Tripitaka Koreana, or as you might know it, Palmante Jangyong. This is a Buddhist scripture written in 81,258 wooden blocks and printed with perfectly carved wooden letters. These letters are carved so perfectly that there is almost no mistake in them. So you might ask, how is it related to Mongols? I will tell you. The people of Koryo created this Tripitaka Koreana with the hope that Buddha will help them get rid of the Mongols and protect their cities from the Mongol invasion. Now we will talk about another big invasion that happened in Korean history, the Imjin Wars. I'm pretty sure you know already a lot about these wars, but let me sum it up for you. In the 16th century, Japan was a country of small local countries that were unified by one man. He was called Toyotomi Hideyoshi. After unifying Japan, he decided that he will take on Ming China and attack the country. However, if you look at the world map, you realize that to get to China, he has to come through the Korean peninsula. And this is how the Imjin Wars started. Japan attacked Korea with huge armies and brought massive devastation and destruction. But how did it all go? Well, you all know this gentleman, right? What is his name? Yes, he is General Kimyushin. Actually, a few generals like him and Kwon Yul, for example, are the ones we should thank for the survival of Korea in these wars. How did Korea survive? Let me tell you about it in a minute. The Korean army at this time was mostly armed with bows, traditional Korean bows. Also, they knew other weapons like cannons and the hand cannons. But the Japanese had one thing that Koreans didn't use, and that is a modern type musket, chojong. This musket was much quicker than the weapons that the Koreans used. And because of this, Japanese had big victories on the field of battle. That is until Yi Sun-shin came to the picture. As you all know, Yi Sun-shin is one of the most famous generals in Korean history, and rightly so. Let me tell you something about the background. We already talked about how Korean Navy was on a very high level. Actually, Korean Navy in the 16th century was much more developed than the Japanese one. One of Yi Sun-shin's wonderful inventions was the turtle ship. The turtle ship was a technological wonder in that age. Why? Let's look at it. First, follow me. As you can see, the turtle ship is covered on the top. Its covering protects the people inside from arrows and musket balls. And it's also covered in spikes that would hurt people who jump on the ship in order to overtake it. Second, very good innovation is in the front. As you can see, the turtle ship doesn't only have cannons on the side, but also in the front. And then there is this dragon head. Why is it here, you ask? To scare the enemy. Stories tell that Yi Sun-shin would put a smoking material in the mouth of the dragon so that it would cover the ship in some kind of scary smoke. Clever, right? However, technology was not the only thing that helped Yi Sun-shin win these battles. He was a very good commander who knew the lay of the land very well. So he used the terrain against the Japanese. With this, he could destroy many Japanese ships that brought food and additional soldiers to the land. And in the end, this forced the Japanese to withdraw from the Korean peninsula. But before we finish, let me talk about one more important general that we often forget about. Let's go.
때부터 이순신 퇴각한다.
한산도 해전. 이날의 전투로 일본군은 59척의 배와 8,980명이 이르는 군사를 잃었다. 대선을 거둔 조선수군은 탁월한 지휘관이었던 이순신 장군이 있었지만 귀하 장수들과 고된 훈련을 이겨낸 군사들의 피와 땀이 있었기에 23전 23승도 가능했다. 그리고 420여 년이 지난 지금까지도 한산도 대첩은 세계 4대 해전의 하나로 기록되고 있다.
We already mentioned that the Korean Navy was much better than the Japanese one, but there was one more field where the Koreans were over the Japanese during the Imjin Wars. Can you guess what is it? I will tell you. This is the cannons and the missile weapons. If you look behind me, you can see a very particular and weird missile weapon. And what is this? Yes, you guessed right. Let's talk about it a bit later. First, I will mention the second general I wanted to talk about. We just finished talking about Isun-shin. Can you tell me who is another very famous general of the Imjin Wars? Yes, it's Kwon Yul. While Isun-shin was defending the seas, Kwon Yul was the one who won against the Japanese on land. And why am I talking about this near the Hwacha? I will tell you why. Do you know the story of the defense of Hangju Fortress? Hangju Fortress was one of the big battles where Kwon Yul defeated the attacking Japanese. And he defeated them using Korean cannons and hwachas. Hwacha is actually a rocket launcher of the Joseon dynasty. It is capable of shooting huge amount of arrows that explode on impact. So as you can imagine, for a Japanese army armed with spears and muskets, it's a deadly weapon to face. What you see near me are not chimneys or ovens. This is a smoke signal system called Pongsute. How did it work? The soldiers made fire in each of these beacons, so it could work in both night and daytime. In the night you could see the fire in the beacon, and in daytime you could see the smoke coming out of it. So what was it used for? Actually, this was an information system to show about the movements of the enemy. And this is how it worked. If only one beacon was smoking, it meant everything is normal, nothing to worry about. If two beacons were smoking, it meant the enemy appeared on the horizon, we can already see him. If three beacons were smoking, it meant the enemy is getting closer to the border. In case of 4 beacons smoking, it meant the enemy crossed the border. And if all 5 beacons were smoking, it meant the fighting against the enemy has begun. As you can see, this was a signal system that could show the situation from far away. Now, I have a question. Which famous mountain in Seoul had this signaling system? Can you answer? Yes, it's Namsan. Very good. Last but not least, we will talk about this marvelous building behind me. Do you know what is this? Yes, it's the Hwasong Fortress in Suwon. It was built by the revolutionary king, King Chongjo. And actually the building is very unique because it's not really built in traditional Korean way. but it also includes some Western and in that age very modern technologies and building methods. It was built to be the most modern fortress in Joseon and to be able to defend even against weapons like this, modern cannons. So as you can see, at its time it was a very modern and high-tech fortress, but it also has a different meaning. What? Actually, this building was also built to the memory of Kim Jong-jo's father. Do you know who he was? Indeed, he was Crown Prince Sado, the tragic Crown Prince who was put to death in a rice chest by his own father, Kim Yong-jo. So as you can see, this building is also one of the top-notch military forts in Korea, as well as a beautiful memorial of love of a son towards his father. I hope you enjoyed this little tour throughout Korean military history with us. Thank you, and have a very, very nice day, and take care. Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Imjin, and today I'm gonna talk about Imjin and Gobuksan. Imjin was a famous general. Imjin made a boat that called Gobuksan, and Gobuksan has iron trap on it so it can protect from the fire. And Imjin won the Norangin Shore battle, but he got shot. He said, "Keep waving the flag and don't tell anyone on my death." Thank you for listening.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, Mr. Hwarang, I will start here.
Hello, I'm Shao, and today I'm talking about hwarang. And hwarang is an elite group of Silla Dynasty, and they are sons of noblemen and young men. Also, they study art and other subjects, and they have 5 rules. First is loyalty to country, filial piety, and filial piety, which is loyalty to parents, and trusting friends, and don't retreat during the war, and don't kill anybody without a reason. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dalia. I'm from Egypt and I'm working in Egypt in the Cultural Heritage Administration, and I came to Korea to study World Heritage master's degree, and and it was so nice to see you today. And when I go to Egypt, you can visit me anytime. Yeah, thank you.